Hey campers, nice to see you. Been a while. Hope everybody is doing well. Hope everybody is staying safe and making the best of a very unique situation. And certainly do say that I miss seeing you guys all the time. Um, Certainly makes you appreciate being at school a little bit more. Kind of like what I said in my message in the video that was made for you guys. Certainly hope you guys enjoyed that. I know that the teachers really felt compelled to do something like that for you. And if you get the chance, please make sure that you thank some of the teachers that you saw. And also, please make sure that you thank Officer Misty, whose idea it was to come up with that, and to Mrs. Lyons, the TV production teacher, who edited all of that together. It took quite a while, to say the least, and it was a heck of an effort. Um, Again, it's a unique situation, and I appreciate you guys trying to do the best that you can. Um, an extension has been given, I guess, is the best way to say it, for some of the work that hasn't been turned in. So you still get a grace period till May 4th, I believe, to rectify any work that wasn't handed in for the third marking period, because we have moved on to the fourth marking period now. We're about ready to start our next book. Hopefully, you have gone to the office and picked it up, The Alchemist. Um, this is an allegorical tale. I just posted your first assignment for this, and it's just three simple questions to define what an allegorical tale is, and give me some examples of it. And the examples are possibly some of the ones that you learned when you first started to read. So I have no problem um, using some of those early examples as a child to explain what an allegorical tale is, and make sure that you explain how that example is an allegorical tale. Okay. I also want you to define what an alchemist is. Now, don't define. Use the definition for alchemy. Alchemy is actually the forerunner for chemistry, but an alchemist is a little different. So make sure that you get the definition of an alchemist. Okay. Um, and it still deals with transformation, but make sure that's the definition I'm looking for, not alchemy. And I also want you to look up what is a personal legend, because that is what this story is about. Um, this story is kind of like it is a fictional story, but it is also a story about the actual author himself, who had a message he wanted to tell, a story he wanted to tell, and he put it in book form. And it took quite a while before it actually was able to be published, and also become a success. But it is the author's personal legend as well. And having done some research on this book, because it's been a while since I read it, um, taking a look at some of the research, it's been it's been categorized as a self-help book as well. So when you read this, I hope you'll understand why it's been deemed a self-help book. And I also, again, when you define personal legend, to keep that in the back of your mind, because it is something that I want you guys to take a look at personally right here. Um, and that's one of the things that I wanted to cover with this book. Some of the lessons that you can learn from this book is that no matter what you do, is to make sure that you do it because it's what your heart and soul desire. It's what you want to do. Okay, you'll see that explained in this book. And remember, you're going to see some examples of it here that play out in the book, that also play out in our lives. You're going to fail, you're going to stumble, you're going to make mistakes, but you can't give up in the process of wanting to get what you want in this world. Um, and It's a reminder too, also of, and you'll see it in a line. It's very early in the book, and when I go through this, I'll talk to you about the simple things in life. They are the most important and the most extraordinary, and a lot of times the most memorable. Alrighty, we'll talk about that, or at least try to convey that here in the messages that I'll be sharing with you. Also, you're going to hear a term called maktub. Okay, and basically it is a term that means it is written. A lot of times in the Muslim religion, you'll hear about it. It was written. It was God's will. So we're talking about fate. We're talking about destiny here. So if you see the word maktub, that's what we're talking about here. Okay. Now the book is written in third person. It's about a young boy named Santiago who was 16 when he starts this journey, his personal legend. Um, and the story opens up with him attending to his flock. He's a shepherd. And it takes place, the story takes place, it starts in a town called Andalusia, which is part of Spain. Um, and he is with his flock at the start of this story. Um, and you find that there are lessons throughout this story that we can apply to ourselves, that we see in ourselves. For example, um, on page 7, okay, he is remembering a time where he met a merchant girl who becomes an object of his desire from a region of Andalusia. And he tells her, on page 7, that I usually learn more from my sheep than in books because he loves to read. And she always sees him with a book, and he always has a book with him. But it's true. He says that we learn more. I learn more from my sheep than from books, and it's true because we do learn more from experiences and from others than we do from a book. And that'll be one of the questions that I'm going to ask you to talk about or write about for this first section of the book. I'm going to cover the first 27 pages of this. Now, there are no chapters in this book, gang. It's basically split up into two parts. The first part is pages 1 to 70, and the rest of the book is pages 71 to the end. So we're going to break it up into, maybe 30-page sections. Okay. So one of the first questions I'm going to ask you about you know, is it true that we do learn more from our experiences and from others than we do in a book? And you'll see that. So make sure that when you see that line, remember it. Okay. Um, this is a boy who I think thinks more with his heart than with his head, and that's something that I want you to think about who you are. Are you the kind of person that thinks here more than here, or do you think more with your heart than with your head? I know for me, I my decisions are made here more than from here. My brother and I are very different, and I think I might have talked about that in the past. But I'm the kind of person that thinks with my heart, and I can give you many examples about that. And me being in the position that I am for the last 23 years is an example of thinking with my heart. I've always wanted to be a teacher. It had nothing to do with anything but wanting to help people. So think about you as a person as you read this book, and that'll be one of the questions I want you to answer. Okay. Um, there's a lot of things that we see here in this book. Okay. That again, that are um, that are things that we see in our lives. For example, the sheep. I want you to think about how the sheep are metaphor for people in general. All right, the general population, not so much you, but just people in general. Think about what sheep are like. Think about what a sheep is like, and a flock is like. All right. So one of the questions I'll ask you to answer is how are people like sheep? Okay. So he is making his journey with his flock, and we find out that he wasn't always a shepherd. He wanted to be. His parents wanted him to be a priest, and he studied in the seminary, and he did not want to be a priest. He wanted to travel, which gets back to something we talked about, personal legend. Okay. Um, he wanted to travel, and being a shepherd allowed him to do this. Okay. But his father was kind of skeptical about it. On page 11, he flashbacks to the time he told his father he didn't want to be a priest anymore and he wanted to be a shepherd. And another question I want you to think about is a philosophical question again. His father reads and tells him people from all over the world have passed through this village. They come in search of new things, but when they leave, they are basically the same people they were when they arrived. They climb the mountain to see the castle, and they wind up thinking that the past was better than what we have now. They have blonde hair or dark skin, but basically they're the same as the people who live right here. Is that true? Are people the same regardless of where they live? Is human nature changed? Do people who may not speak English from another country the same as us? The same as you and me? Philosophical question. Okay, and it gets back to human nature. So that's on page 11. Okay, but the father understands and he's selfless. And in fact, the father gives him funds in order to become a shepherd. He gives him a pouch that held three ancient Spanish gold coins that his father found. And that is the start of this young man Santiago's journey to finding out who he is. Okay, and this helps him buy his flock, which continues as he sells their wool to feed and fund his journey and his travels. Okay, um, page 13. Okay, he's obsessed with seeing this girl again that he had seen before, a merchant's daughter who would buy wool from Santiago, and he is looking forward to seeing this girl one more time in a town. And I know I'm probably going to mispronounce this, but I believe the town is called Tarifa. Okay, Tarifa. Okay, and he's making his journey there, and he's looking forward to seeing this young lady. Um, and there's another mention of fate in a line, okay, on page 13. It's possible of having a dream come true that makes life interesting, he thought. As he looked again at the position of the sun and hurried his pace, he had suddenly remembered that in Tarifa there was an old woman who interpreted dreams. Now, the young boy kept having a dream at the beginning of the story, which is the impetus for the reason for the story. So you must remember and take note of the dream that he has at the beginning of the story, because that is the reason why he wants to see this old gypsy woman who can interpret dreams. Okay, but I want you also to think about, all right, a quote that I remembered about dreams. And somebody once said that we walk away from our dreams for fear that they won't come true, or worse, we walk away from them for fear that they might come true. Another philosophical question to debate when you read this. Okay, that was on page 13. It's something that I will ask you to look at. Okay, all right. So he meets this woman, this old woman, to interpret his dreams, and he's a little skeptical about it, but she says on page 15. You came so that you could learn about your dreams, and the dreams are the language of God, and he never told her why he was there. Okay, so how did she know this? All righty, so maybe there's a little bit of truth to her being able to interpret dreams. Okay, so she tells him, all right, that in order for him to see this dream come true, that he has to travel to the pyramids of Egypt, and there his treasure will be found. Okay, so he's a little skeptical, but okay, maybe this is where my dreams, and this is maybe where I need to go to make my dreams come true. Okay, but she tells him, all right, he has no money to give her, so she says, all right, in order for you to fulfill what I've given to you, I want 1/10 of the treasure that you find. So he makes a deal with her, and he says, all right, I'll give you 1/10 of whatever I find in the pyramids of Egypt when I finally arrive in my journey. Okay, so he makes the agreement, and he says to himself, okay, I'm going to take my journey to Egypt. But he was still a little skeptical. Okay, still a little skeptical. Okay, all righty. And then um, he talks to himself and says that another question I would like you to interpret. Um, he says to himself, I'm on page 17 now. Uh, she's still talking to him, and she says it's a dream in the language of the world. I can interpret it, but the interpretation is very difficult. That's why I feel that I deserve a part of what you find. And this is my interpretation. You must go to the pyramids in Egypt. I have never heard of them, but if it was a child who showed them to you, they exist. There you will find a treasure that will make you a rich man. Now remember, treasure doesn't always have to involve gold. It doesn't always have to involve value. Okay, treasure is what you find. Not to whip religion on anybody, but the Bible tells us what is here is what you have is the treasure in your heart. Okay, so the boy was surprised and then irritated. He didn't need to ask the old woman for this, but then he remembered that he wasn't going to have to pay anything. I don't need to waste my time just for this, he said. I told you that your dream was a difficult one, the woman said. It's the simple things in life that are the most extraordinary. Only wise men are able to understand it. And since I'm not wise, I have had to plan other arts, such as the reading of palms. So the question I want you to remember is just what she had said to him. It's the simple things in life that are the most extraordinary. And I want you to think about that to be able to answer that question. And the simple things are the things that we just see every day. Okay? The simple things in life. And it is true. Happiness can be found in them. The best memories can be found in them. Alrighty, so when you get to page 17 and see that line, remind yourself about that. Okay? So he decided to, okay, he had to take care of things at the market. So he goes and he trades the book he has now for a bigger book, all right, to read. And I bring that up because of what's going to happen next. Now, on page 18, he the boy he mentions something that is so true. Okay, um, I'm going to jump into the middle of the paragraph at the top of the page. The day was hot and the wine was refreshing. The sheep were at the gates of the city in a stable that belonged to a friend. The boy knew a lot of people in the city. That was what made traveling appeal to him. He always made new friends, and he didn't need to spend all of his time with them. When someone sees the same people every day, as had happened with him at the seminary, they wind up becoming a part of that person's life, and then they want that person to change. If someone isn't what others want them to be, the others become angry. Everyone seems to have a clear idea of how other people should lead their lives, but none about his or his own. Is this that for me, I find that as a universal truth that people want us to be who they think we should be or fit into the image they have of us or the image of what they have of people. So my question to you that I'll have for you to answer is: it easier to be yourself with those that you don't know and can judge you than it is to be with casual acquaintances? Okay, so think about that. Is it easier to be yourself, to be who you want to be with people you don't see every day, as opposed to the people that you do see every day, whether it be family or friends? Okay, so think about that. Alrighty. Um, so he buys this book, he's reading this book, and all of a sudden, an old man walks up to him and sits down and asks him what he's doing. And the boy doesn't really want to talk to the old man. He wants to focus on his book and he doesn't want to be bothered by anybody. And the old man just continues and persists in striking up a conversation. Um, and he's starting to irritate the boy. Okay, but then the old man, um, tells him that the book is important, but it's irritating. And the boy was like, "How do you know?" And the old man tells him on page 20, it's a book that says the same thing almost all the other books in the world say. It describes people's inability to choose their own personal legends. And it ends up saying that everyone believes the world's greatest lie. And the world's greatest lie, according to the old man, is that at certain points in our lives, we lose control of what's happening to us, and our lives become controlled by fate. That's the world's greatest lie. That that we lose control of what is happening to us. Um, so this old man, all of a sudden has the boy's attention, and the old man's name is, and I'm going to misinterpret or mispronounce it, Melchizedek. Okay, now the old man when he talks is very in tune with the boy, and it kind of, as you read, makes you kind of wonder: is this one of those instances that we see in a movie or reading a book where all of a sudden this otherworldly person or spirit appears and provides information or provides guidance? So you have to wonder about this with this Melchizedek. Okay, um, and he's trying to help the boy, and the boy tells him, or the man asks him, "Why do you tend the flock of sheep?" Okay, and the boy says, "Because I like to travel." And the man lets him know, "Hey, well then, okay, you have, okay, found what you want to do in life. You have found your your passion." Okay, um, and he tells the boy about how all things are one. When you want something, all the universe conspires in helping you achieve it. Okay, there are things in the world that are out of our control. that help us achieve, or there are things that come into our orbit that help us achieve that goal that we want. Okay? So the old man has the young has Santiago's attention to say the least. Okay? And on page 25, the old man pointed to a baker standing in a shop window at one corner of a plaza. When he was a child, that man wanted to travel too, but he decided first to buy his bakery and put some money aside. When he's an old man, he's going to spend a month in Africa. He never realized that people are capable at any time in their lives of doing what they dream of. He should have decided to become a shepherd, Santiago said. Well, he thought about that, the old man replied. But bakers are more important people than shepherds. Bakers have homes, while shepherds sleep out in the open. Parents would rather see their children marry bakers than shepherds. The boy felt a pang in his heart thinking about that merchant's daughter. There was surely a baker in her town. The old man continued, in the long run, what people think about shepherds and bakers becomes more important for them than their own personal legend. Okay? So, are these people judging, feeling good about what they have and what these people do not? You have to think about that. The old man leafed through the book and fell to a page he came to, and the boy waited and then interrupted the old man, just as he himself had been interrupted. Why are you telling me this? Santiago said. The old man replied, because you are trying to realize your personal legend, and you are at the point where you're about to give it all up, meaning that merchant's daughter. He wants to travel, but he's obsessed with that merchant's daughter, and if he tries to end up with that merchant's daughter, will he give up his personal legend? So, and the next page, Santiago asks, and that's when you always appear on the scene? Melchizedek replies, not always in this way, but I always appear in one form or another. Sometimes I appear in the form of a solution or a good idea, and other times at a crucial moment I make it easier for things to happen. There are other things I do too, but most of the time people don't realize I've done them. And it gets back to something that I want you to think about, how there are signs out there for us to notice to help us on our journey to get to where we're going, to help us achieve what we want to achieve. And there are things that happen around us that come into our orbit that help direct our sails to get to where we want to go in our lives without us realizing it until afterwards. So, this is a very deep book, to say the least, while it is very on the surface as well. So, you need to pay attention to those things, okay? So, I want you to read up to page 27. Okay, I want you to read up to page 27, and there are some questions that I want you to answer, but it really doesn't have to interpret the book so much as it does to interpret who we are and life around us. Okay, as I said, this is kind of like a self-help book. Now, before I leave you, there is a prologue. Okay, prior to reading this, all right, part one. And if you're familiar with the Greek myth or legend of Narcissus, it focuses on that. In the prologue, there's an alchemist talking to the lake that Narcissus would look into. Narcissus does not appear in this little prologue. It's only a page, a front and back. Um, but I want you to think, when you read that, I want you to think about it. And we'll talk about it as we go farther into the book. How does this prologue fit into what we're reading? Okay? But there's a reason why they put it there. Okay? And we'll talk about it. So I want you to read up to page 127. Want you to read up to page 27. Um, I'll post some questions that I talked about here in this short little video. Actually, it's not a short little video. It's now for 20 minutes. But we'll hopefully these videos will help you interpret what we're trying to do, what we're reading. Okay, and again, refer to it when you have to answer those questions. Okay. We'll do this again the next time we see each other. We'll be talking about pages 28 to about, I don't know, 50 something. Okay. But we'll cover each section at a time. All right. And we'll go from there. Alrighty. Again, hope everybody is safe and hope you're doing as well as you can throughout all of this. And again, hopefully you know, the light is at the end of the tunnel, and we'll get to see each other for just a little bit before the school year ends. Alrighty, campers. So until then, be good. Take care. Take care of your work. Okay. Alrighty. Oh, by the way, grades will be available for your parents to see. The portal will be available on April 27th. Okay. Take care, and I'll talk to you later.